Are influencers manipulators? That's debatable. Hey guys, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my brand new series on this channel, That's Debatable. This is a series that I decided to do mainly out of my love and my newfound passion for delving more into commentary sides of things. These are going to be debate format, long form videos in which I tackle one debatable hot button topic in the beauty community, tackling both sides of the issue, presenting my opinion, and then letting the comments drive the conversation. It's a chatty get ready with me style, but the focus is not on the makeup products themselves. While I do my makeup, I'll share the pro stance, the con stance, each with their own main thesis and an argument to back up that thesis. Then my thoughts on the issue, with cited sources whenever I mention scientific, psychological, or sociological evidence. A long form Zoom lecture basically. And of course, because these are debatable concepts, the main thing I want to do with each of these videos is to spark a conversation, because I think I learn the most from you guys and from learning your guys' perspectives. These videos are meant to function as both a thought exercise and just a safe, kind, and open environment to question and ponder things. And I wanted to start off this series with a topic that I teased in a video recently, and a lot of people asked me to make a full video on it. Are influencers manipulators? I was originally just going to do one of my standard chatty get ready with me's, but I figured there was no better way to kick off this series than to write an argumentative essay about the topic and then present both sides in a debate format. So that's what we're doing today.
I'm so creative like that.
I hope you guys enjoy this video. I don't know where exactly the series is going to go, but I'm really excited about it. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Full details of this look should be throughout the video. I won't be really talking about the products, but I will be just like doing the makeup look, and then everything I use will be in the description box. But I think I've talked enough. Without further ado, let's get debating. Alright, throughout this get ready with me, I'm going to be using products, probably not going to be talking much about them, but I will try and mention whatever I'm using on my face if I can, and if I don't, it'll be down in the description box. I've already done skin prep, so I'm going to start off with primer, the Laneige Glowy Makeup Serum. This is a new release. Before I start getting into the pro and con side of the debate, I wanted to start off by first defining manipulation. What is manipulation in the first place? Defining the variable is an essential part of understanding the arguments on both sides, so I want to start off by doing that today, and if you see me looking down throughout this video, I'm referencing my argumentative essay, 4 pages of notes that I've written for this video, just because I am doing citations and stuff, so I want to get everything right. If we're reading straight off of Google, psychological manipulation is a type of social influence that aims to change the behavior or perception of others through indirect, deceptive, or underhanded tactics. By advancing the interests of the manipulator, often at another's expense, such methods could be considered exploitative and devious. That's the definition straight from Wikipedia, but do we use Wikipedia as a cited source? Well, sometimes, but especially in the social sciences field and the psychological field, manipulation can take on different meanings, and there's a huge philosophical debate over whether or not manipulation inherently has a good or bad connotation to it. But in the social sciences, we can find the terms like manipulation being used in a morally neutral way, even when another person is the target of manipulation. So, for example, several papers by evolutionary psychologist David M. Buss and colleagues, more or less as a synonym for influence, in their discussions of how humans influence the behaviors of others. This comes directly from an argumentative paper by Stanford. So, in this video, the way I'm choosing to define manipulation is through a morally neutral lens, because today's focus isn't on whether or not manipulation is inherently positive or neutral or negative, but whether or not beauty influencers engage in it. So for the sake of clarifying today's video, the term manipulation is going to be taking on a neutral connotation. So now that we've defined our variable, we can get into the arguments, and starting off with the pro side. Yes, manipulation takes place in every social interaction, but even more so in the unique relationship between an influencer and a follower. The central part of this argument essentially hinges on the idea that yes, altering perceptions of somebody, which is part of the definition of manipulation, isn't necessarily always a bad thing. Altering other people's perceptions of us is something that we do every day. It's building rapport in the workplace, it's getting somebody to like you, it's sharing parts of your personal life with others in order to build a stronger connection. In essence, that's the nature of building relationships. We do this all the time in friendships and personal relationships, and most of the time, these micro-calculations and these connections that we're making in our mind, this action, sharing this part of myself with somebody, will have this result. Most of the time these micro-calculations are subconscious, but we make them nonetheless. For example, if I felt like I was growing distant from a friend, I might sit down with them and tell them something personal about myself and open up to them in a way that I haven't before in order to foster a stronger connection with that friend. Am I manipulating that person into feeling closer to me by sharing with them a part of myself that demands closeness? Influencers are essentially changing the perceptions of themselves through the eyes of the audience with every single video they make, with every single action they take, with every single word that comes out of their mouths. My tone of voice or the way I speak about something in a video could cause somebody to automatically like me or automatically dislike me. Especially with the magnifying glass that is the internet and online exposure, every action that we take that others see, which especially if you're an influencer, a lot of people are seeing what you're doing, has weight and has the potential to change how people see you. But does it have the potential to change action? And if so, is that manipulation or is that just human agency? Through this lens, altering the actions of someone as an influencer translates into maybe convincing them or persuading them, those are two very different things, into buying something or taking an action. Convincing implies that you were already going to come to that conclusion anyways, you just needed a little bit of extra push. Whereas persuading takes on a bit more of an insidious connotation, persuading somebody to do something that they wouldn't necessarily do on their own. There's a difference between saying convince me, give me that extra push that I need to come to the conclusion I already was going to, or persuade me, get me to the other side. But as an influencer, do I have the power to change someone's actions? Is it the adjectives that I use to describe a highlighter I like?
So pigmented.
So pigmented.
So pigmented.
So pigmented.
I know certainly for me, I've been convinced to spend $30 on concealer just because Samantha Robindahl or Jaclyn Hill has used an abundance of really beautiful adjectives to describe it. Are they the ones who changed my action, or was that something I was going to do anyway? I've gotten comments saying that the tone of my voice or the way I phrase something or just the way that the vibe that I give off makes somebody hit the subscribe button when I ask them to. When I say at the end of my video, make sure you are subscribed to my channel down below. Is that manipulation? Of course it is, because that's why brands pay influencers, for their influence. Brands pay influencers, I get ad money, because my speech, my videos, and my actions can move people, can create a desired effect. Thus, an audience is not just a medium of conveying a message, it's a mobilizable, monetizable thing. And this power can often be used for bad. Horde mentality, stan culture, the forging of boundaryless parasocial relationships that can render an audience loyal to a fault. I think one of the biggest examples that I wanted to bring up in this video was the situation that we saw last year with Gabby Hanna personally messaging one of her subscribers to turn them against Jessie Smiles. I won't go over the full details of the situation because there have been plenty of more in-depth videos that go over all the intricacies and all the messages that you really need to understand. But essentially what was happening was that Gabby Hanna was private messaging a mutual subscriber, used her position of influence to message a subscriber, thus leveraging the inherent power imbalance between them and getting them to her side to do her bidding. Clearly, this is an example of manipulation, flat out, full stop manipulation. But is everything that an influencer does inherently manipulation? That's the question. And how do we define this manipulation? Obviously, in this situation, Gabby was taking advantage of a power imbalance that she had as an influencer with an audience member, leveraging a certain level of power that comes with a certain level of influence, and using it to create a desired effect. And is that what I do at the end of my videos when I say, follow me down below on Instagram to see makeup looks like this posted every single day? Whether it's something I've calculated out in my mind and I know, or whether it's just a subconscious micro-calculation that I made but didn't necessarily think about in that way. When I sit down to make an emotional video, yes, I'm probably going to be reaching out to people who may be going through the same thing. And thus, am I persuading them to like me more? So, to summarize the pro side, influencers, regardless of whether or not they're doing so consciously, by the very nature of their job and their position, are in a position of manipulating an audience. We hear all the time saying, I never meant to become a role model, this was never what I wanted, but you become that. Influencers become an authority figure with a different level of responsibility conferred on them because of that. And it's an unavoidable fact. Ultimately, influencers influence, as the name would imply, and by that very definition, manipulate, whether it's for the good or the bad. So, going back to the definition, psychological manipulation is a type of social influence that aims to change the behavior or the perception of others through indirect, deceptive, or underhanded tactics. Through the pro lens, largely, we're looking at indirect tactics. And by the topic of this video, are influencers manipulators, I don't want to define the fringe as everybody. I think there are certain situations, for example, Dramageddon 2, where we can definitely define something as full stop manipulation with malintent. Those are outliers of behavior, those are not the regular thing. What I want to define, or rather just question in this video, is Is the inherent role of a social influencer a position of manipulation? And by this very definition, it would seem so. When I laugh and make jokes and share my personality on camera, I'm trying to get you to like me. When I do a sponsored video recommending my class on Skillshare, which you should definitely take because it's up on April 10th, I'm trying to change or alter your action.
The power that that has, the intelligence that that has, the clearance that that has, the access that that has, the influence that that has.
Yes, influencers are manipulators. Whether or not they use this power for good or bad is a whole other debate. But inherently, there's nothing you can do with influence other than. My notes for the con side are a little bit longer and a little bit more conflicting. I'll be honest, while I was writing out the notes and the arguments for this video, I started out with pros just because I felt like I had more things to talk about, and I was getting really passionate and thinking there's no way that I can possibly refute this side. But I think the con side takes on a really interesting nuanced look that had me questioning everything I believed. My thesis for the con side hinges on a key argument that the pro side disregards, and that is intent. Intent matters. Influencing is not manipulation if there's not an intent to control the perceptions and the actions of others. Essentially, the key to this argument is the assumption that a creator creates content because they want to. It's kind of like a common trope to this point, almost to the point of being a joke, that people say, I got into this creating content because I just wanted to share these products I liked. For so many people, especially when they start out, YouTube is a passion project. It's not something that people are trying to do as a full-time job. At least it wasn't for me. I started creating beauty videos in sophomore year because I got really into makeup, because I was watching some of the biggest influencers at the time, Jaclyn Hill, Carly Bible, Nikki Tutorials. Makeup was this big, new, exciting world for me. And as a sophomore in high school, it seemed like the coolest thing was to be a YouTuber. And now my motivations for creating content are largely the same, but also largely changed. I would say the number one reason I make content is because I like doing it and because I really enjoy interacting with my audience that I didn't have before, letting out my creative side, and ultimately just having a place to voice my opinions and say what I want to say. So yeah, my primary motivation is because I really enjoy doing this and because I like sharing things. But I would be lying if I didn't say that the fact that this is now my part-time job is a huge motivator for me to keep consistent uploading schedules and to create content even when I'm feeling in a creative slump. I don't just create for myself anymore. I also feel an obligation to provide content to people who saw something in me and decided to subscribe. I feel like I don't owe them any part of my personal life, but I do owe a certain quality and a certain level of content that they subscribed for. But I guess on the macro side of things, yes, I still create content because I want to. Thus, my intent in sharing products and talking about my personal life is not to manipulate an audience and change the way they see me, but rather to serve myself because I want to share things I'm passionate about, whether that's makeup or the mental health struggle that almost cost me my life. Intention is the separating factor between sharing a product I like and conversing with my audience versus sharing a product because I want to convince my audience to buy that product and conversing with my audience in order to build a certain level of trust in a relationship so that I can gain something from that connection. Intent is the key that separates those two very different actions. I'm going in with the Midas and Smoky Glow eyeshadow palette for my eye look. Come on. I don't have any clean brushes. Great, awesome, amazing, cool. For me, when I sit down to make videos in which I'm recommending products, my intention is not to convince people to buy those products. Why? Because I'm not the company selling them. Yes, I might make 2 or 3 cents of commission if somebody clicks on my affiliate link and decides to buy the product. I don't give a shit about those 2 or 3 cents. Ultimately, the reason I'm here, through my eyes at least, is to provide information and talk about things I'm passionate about, and a lot of the time that means products. The same goes for interacting with my audience. When I respond to comments, I'm not thinking, will this strengthen my bond with this viewer, with this single member of the audience, and thus further my goals? I respond to comments because somebody said something thought-provoking, especially on my more commentary-based videos, or I respond to comments if someone said something rude. I might snap back. I shouldn't, and that might be another topic for another debate video, but sometimes I do because I'm human. I respond to comments if someone says something intriguing, or if someone says something just plain sweet that really makes my day. I'm not calculating in my mind, if I respond to this comment, will this person idolize me just a little bit more? Who does that? I'm sure some people do. So with that in mind, with regards to the micro calculations that we talked about on the pro side, we make them. There's no doubt about that. But if we assume good intent, then these micro calculations that we make are largely unconscious. The question becomes, should we be held accountable for things we do unconsciously? Should we label our human interactions that follow the patterns of normal human psychology as manipulation? Or just normal human social interaction? But largely the conclusion is, if intent matters, then no, this isn't manipulation. It's just being a human. So that covers the pro-argument side on perception. But what about action? When we influence action, is it really up to us? I get a lot of comments or tags on Instagram, Julia made me buy this, Julia made me buy that, or you made me buy the Modern Renaissance palette because you talk so highly of it. Sometimes I really enjoy seeing that just to see, like, I've started an entire cult surrounding a single ColourPop Super Shock shadow. It's a colloquial term of hyperbole that I often use as well, like Samantha Ravindal forced me at gunpoint to buy the Bite Beauty Changemaker foundation. She didn't actually come to my house, like, but I would be lying if I didn't say that she definitely influenced my action and therefore got me to buy this foundation. I let somebody influence me into taking an action, but when I buy that product, is it really up to that person? I think we often underestimate, especially on social media, the role of human agency in these things. Yes, role models are obviously role models and they have a certain social responsibility to provide a good example of positive behavior to their audience. But ultimately, there's individual responsibility as well, and our decisions to purchase, stan, watch, interact with, or even view a certain person are our own choices. Sometimes hate comments really mystify me because I'm like, why are you even watching me then? I have one pretty consistent hater who clearly doesn't like me or any of my friends because she watches all of us and hate comments on all of our channels. But because it's on multiple videos, I can only assume that this person engages in what is traditionally called hate watching, which is just watching someone's content specifically to make yourself mad. It's something I've really never understood until I started realizing that I unintentionally sometimes do this. I get really weird about unsubscribing to people. I feel like I'm breaking a sort of social contract when I do that. And even if I haven't watched a single video of that person in a long time, I can be really resistant to hitting the subscribe button. And this is not with creators who I've like decided I dislike. It's usually with people who I just don't like vibe with their content anymore, and I'll try and force myself to like get back into their videos and keep watching their stuff. And inevitably every time I just find myself not enjoying the video. And then I can find myself like starting to resent the person themselves and getting annoyed with their content, when really all I could do is just unsubscribe from the content that I don't vibe with anymore and not have to see it. I don't really necessarily think that's like on the same level as hate watching or even the same thing, but it's a problem that's solved by the simplest action of just choosing to not watch or not support things that you don't like. That's the beauty of human agency, especially on social media. We can make our own choices on what we want to watch, what we want to support, what we want to even view in our feeds. I can mute someone and I never have to see their pictures on my feed ever again. So through that lens, influencers can absolutely convince you to do something, but your brain does the legwork in getting there. When you think about it like that, did Samantha convince me to buy the Bite foundation? Or did I convince myself to buy that on her recommendation? If we look at it like that, we have to take a more critical look at ourselves and the role of our own agency in our decisions. Am I justifying my purchasing decisions on somebody else on the predication that they're manipulating me into doing something? Or am I as much to blame for the money leaving my pocket as somebody with an affiliate code saying use my code for 10% off at Morphe? I gotta speed up my makeup because we're getting to the conclusions part of this video, but ultimately the conclusions of the con side come down to this. Influence through social interaction and manipulation are separated by a difference in intent. The role of an influencer is not a position of inherent manipulation, because audiences have free choice and influencers have different intentions motivating them to create and interact. Thus, this social bond is not one of manipulation, but connection. It's definitely available to be harnessed and used for manipulation, but the nature of the relationship itself is not inherently manipulative. Not loving this eye look, honestly. Not because of the palette, just because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, the wing kind of saved it. So we've done the pros, we've done the cons, and now for the most important part, my opinion. Ultimately, in a perfect world where manipulation abided by my arbitrary definition in this video, a neutral connotation, then I place myself solidly on the pro side. There is inherent manipulation that comes with the position of influence, and if we view manipulation as a neutral term, then yes, being a social influencer is a form of manipulation. But we don't live in a perfect world, and I don't think it's fair to paint meaningful social interactions with such a wide brush as this inherently manipulative thing. I think intentions very much separate manipulators from just plain regular influencers making beauty videos to pay the bills. Ultimately, I can't speak for every influencer. I think we see a lot of good ones, and I think we see a lot of people who use their relationship with their audience to further themselves and to further their business opportunities. And though that may be a shrewd business tactic and has made people millions upon millions of dollars, it's not the way that I want to conduct myself. I don't think that it's the way that the majority of beauty influencers want to conduct themselves. All I know is my intent. I don't speak for anybody else's. And personally for me, I do my best to use my platform and my small, almost minuscule level of influence compared to other people in this video. I try to use that platform responsibly. If I'm manipulating people, I hope it's manipulating people to get an education, to stay in school, to not buy that palette that they were on the fence about maybe, to save money, to treat themselves sometimes, to make ultimately informed decisions, and that's what I hope to do with this series. That's why I wanted to make this video the first of the series. That's the thing, I don't know what happens with my messages once they're out there. I don't know what people will do with my words and opinions. All I can focus on is intent, and sometimes that's not enough for me. Sometimes I worry. Sometimes I stay awake at night wondering, did I do the right thing? If I share my college experience, am I maybe pushing people to go down a path that's not right for them? Am I pushing people into going into debt? And maybe that's not the path for them and their life. By sharing my experience with the surgery that changed my life, am I maybe influencing other people to find unhappiness somewhere that they didn't previously have? Am I being responsible? Am I being a good person? It's something I've asked multiple therapists until one of them gave me an answer that I just try and remember every time I wonder and question myself. Bad people don't worry about whether or not they're bad people. Focusing on intent and understanding that if I'm doing the best I can, it's out of my hands to control the narrative, and to a certain degree, I shouldn't even seek to. I know that editing Julie is probably gonna have a hard time with this one. This was definitely one of the most enjoyable videos I've ever put together, but also one of the hardest to film. This is my first video of this series. I hope that as I progress through this, they can get a little bit better and more well formatted, but I want to make them as interactive as possible. So of course we have the open comment section and polls and cards if you want to participate in those, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What is a topic that you want to see next? I have 3 of the most compelling ones that I'm really excited to put my essays together for. So are influencers manipulators? That's debatable. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And if you made it to the very end of this video, I love you. Keep thinking. Bye.
For so many years, I thought that there was something wrong with me, that I was the black sheep and I needed to change my personality. And after a lot of time and consideration, I realized who I was. I'm a piece of shit.